Developing tomorrow's leaders. Educating, supporting, and inspiring the next generation of leaders. Are you tired of just surviving your teenager years and ready to thrive? If so, you're in for a treat. Today, Coach T sits down with the one and only Tweenager Life Skills Coach, Nicole Grelecki, to learn how she helps families like yours not only survive, but thrive during these tumultuous years. Nicole is a master of coaching tweens to become independent, confident action takers, equipped with the skills and knowledge to make smart decisions. With her interactive coaching and teaching style, Nicole ensures that every teenager feels capable of achieving their full potential. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn from one of the best in the business, Nicole Grelecki, Tweenager Life Skills Coach.
Welcome to another episode of Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. I am Antoine Thompson, or Coach T. I hope you all will help me welcome Nicole Grelecki, or Coach G, to Developing Tomorrow's Leaders. How are you doing today, Nicole?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. And I love the fact that we're going to call this show Coach G and Coach T. And for two reasons. Well, we're coaches with letters, not names, but we're also two coaches that empower young people to be the best versions of themselves. And one of the things that I would love for you to share with us first and foremost is what you do specifically.
So, hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. And I am a Tweenager Life Skills Coach. I introduced this term to Coach T. It's preteen, teen, and anything in between, because sometimes age doesn't matter. And so I am a Tweenager Life Skills Coach. And I love to help build the relationships between parents and teenagers, so we can stop dreading teenage years and teenage years and start feeling more success every single day.
That is what I love to hear, because in essence, I do the same thing from kind of a different angle, but we have the same goal in mind. And I think what's really important about what you said, Nicole, is it's also about bridging the gap between parents and kids and what they go through between the preteen, or as you like to say, tweenage, by the way. Yeah. And I love that term. And just for the record, Nicole has given me permission to use this word moving forward, which I shall do. Tweenagers. Yeah. I think that it's so important. It's me working with middle schoolers, specifically coaching them. One of the things I find is in a lot of conversations, I find out there are some miscommunication. There's a miscommunication gap, or a communication gap between them and their parents. And we have conversations about it. And I think what you do and what I do is the kids really appreciate having a space where they can have those conversations and share things that they don't readily talk to their parents about.
Yeah. And I think it allowing them the space and time to talk with somebody, right? I'm a mother myself. I have two teenagers of my own. And I've even had to, go to my colleagues and say, hey, my kids just need to hear it from somebody else. And we're not here to replace school, or like for you, the court or the game of any reason. But sometimes it's the in-between that can kind of interact or cause problems for school or game time or things like that. And so for me, it's so important. I call them the little things, and I've been told that I should stop calling them the little things because they've turned into big things, right? These critical life skills that we can help these kiddos with, like, for example, communicating with their parents, communicating with their teachers, communicating with their coaches, and then how they can, just even a simple example of how do they go from school to wherever they do play a game, because not all of them are at school, but then the communication with your parents, right? Like I talk about how my partner, my husband, and it's second nature for us because we've created this structure that if he's going to be late from work and he lets me know, right? And this is just an accepted thing because we've created that structure for ourselves. But our kiddos, I do not believe in they should know better, because if we say that they should know better, we are shooting all over ourselves, because if we haven't taught them then they shouldn't know better. And so we have to provide that structure for them. And so it's predictable. Everybody likes things to be certain and predictable. And all we have to do is lay that groundwork for them. So then, you guys can start using it now. These are things that you can use right now to help your family life better, right? A lot of times I think parents feel overwhelmed with the sense that, okay, they went to school, they just came off the court from Coach T's team, and then now they're home, but there's no structure at home to say, okay, when I come home, I'm expected to do XYZ. And then that will lead to more time, less time for the parent nagging them, less time for the kids arguing with their parents, more time with them just doing what they need to do. So then there's this extra time it creates for them on the flip side that they can actually start enjoying themselves. And it can be 5 minutes a day of sharing wins with each other. And then we're like surviving off great energy versus what sometimes like prevents that from happening because we have this struggle in the middle or when they first get home, and then it turns into something much larger. We're just trying to eliminate that problem.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go back to what you said right before you started that, when you said that, people tell you not to say the little things. Believe it or not, Nicole, I'm forever telling my kids it's the little things that make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So I would tell you to keep it because I think it's really important. And it does tie into what you're talking about as far as with structure and schedule and kids having. Those are little things that become big things.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a bigger part of their lives. So I like the concept of the little things because it's they already know, they have a concept, if you will, of the big picture. But if we can connect those dots with the little things, it makes the bigger picture better. But it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's about how you approach it, as long as you get the same you get the same result. I just personally, I like the little thing approach, but you're 100% right. And I love the last part you mentioned about building that relationship by sharing wins. Yeah. And one way of doing that is that 5 minutes to do that. That's 5 minutes, not on a phone or on an iPad or on a computer. And 5 minutes can turn into 10, 10 can turn into 15, and 15 can turn into 20. And those are the things that I love to be able to do. I work with kids. But I wanted to share one other thing. And this has actually just happened a few days ago. And it goes along with what we're talking about with communication between adults and teenagers talking to their peers. I had a young man that texted me. He's in high school and he's transferring schools. And he and I have had the conversation, and he wanted to know what he should do. I said, well, definitely reach out to the coach. Let him know you're going to be transferring there. You're going to want to play. And a few days later, he texted me back. He goes, hey, I haven't heard back from the coach. Should I, reach back out to him, and what should I say when I do? Those are the kind of things that you're talking about, where kids feel comfortable going to someone else to ask them questions. Because of course, he could have asked his parents, but he wants to get it from somebody that does it on a day-to-day basis, will have a better understanding. And that's something that kids understand when they're interacting with other adults. They're like, oh, this is what you do well. So I feel comfortable coming to you about something to get maybe the answer that I want or the advice that I need.
Yeah. And I think, I do like the little things. I'm glad that you supported me saying that, because for me, when we call them little, they feel achievable. They feel easy. And for me, that's huge. If we can create these easy attainable wins, as I say, then they can build on those. And it's all these little things. If we try to fill our pocket with 5 big things, they don't fit in our pocket. But if we can fill them with all these tiny little things, guess how many we can fit in our pocket at one time? And so that's kind of the mentality of these idea of little things. So thank you. Yes. I mean, because I really do believe that it is these things that we can help these kiddos do that make those transitions a little bit more seamless. And so we are just here, you and I both together. We are here to support. We are here to support them as they go to school. We are here to support them as they go home. And we are just here as a guiding light, right? To support, not undermine families and their structures, but to just have another sounding board that has their best interests in mind.
Well, I think one of the things our listeners need to understand too, and they probably do, but I think it's great to, we have a short discussion about it, is what you just mentioned too, is what we provide as a support system for parents, but it's
Mhm.
also a support system for students. And guess what? It's also a support system for teachers and educators as well,
Yeah.
because we're trying to bridge the gap between the three and four, if you
Mhm.
include ourselves. And I think it's one of those things where supporting, educating, and inspiring is what my tagline is. It's
Yeah.
supporting the kids, and it's inspiring them as well. But it's also to support parents and educators as well. And for me, it's a slippery slope because I'm not a parent per se, but I've been doing this for so long, and I've had
Mhm.
so many relationships with kids that are outside of their homes that I've got to know them on a different level that their parents don't know them on, or maybe
Mhm.
the kids are not ready to share that part of them with their parents, or they choose to keep that separate. Hey, this is part of me that I want to be me, and
Mhm.
it's not
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
bad thing. It's just them, finding out who they are. And I think
Right.
it's so important for them to have relationships with other adults to understand that there's more than one way to see things.
Yep.
I think it's so important for them to do that. But I think the point I was really wanting to make is about the support factor that we provide for
Mhm.
parents, educators, and teenagers.
Tweenagers. It gets them getting used to, but and
It does.
anybody who's talking about this age group understands that, right? Because people sometimes ask me like, is it preteen? Is it teen? I said, well, really, does the age matter? It's not about the age. It's about where that kiddo is in their development. And sometimes teenager is just a broad term that encompasses them all, because it doesn't matter what their age is. It just matters who they are in that moment.
Agreed. Yeah, 100% right. That's why I think when you first mentioned it to me, I was thinking, well, it's the tween part that throws me off, because then you're like, okay, it's the preteen. Okay, that's what you would think teenagers are, but you get a great explanation as to how you encompass that word, meaning
Hmm.
preteens, teens, and young adults.
Yep,
And that's what
exactly.
it encompasses, all of those. And plus, it saves a couple of words. I know for me, preteens
Yeah.
and teens gets, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the benefits that you've seen parents appreciate from you and what you provide their kids and them. Because going back to, we're a support system for parents, and
Yeah.
parents accept that support, because there are some out there that don't want somebody else trying to tell
Yeah.
them how to raise their kids. It's not about how to raise them. All you're
No,
trying to do is provide the skills that they need to be successful beyond
exactly.
school.
So maybe just to tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm a retired police officer, and I'm also a Girl Scout leader, and I'm a mother myself. And so I come from a safety angle. My angle is all about the safety of the family and the teenager. And sometimes safety is verbal, it's nonverbal, it's environment. And the kinds of skills that I teach these kids are right inside your home, right? Like, how do you stay home alone? And then what does that encompass? Sometimes they can learn all the skills that you can teach them, like, how to react in an emergency, how to do, first aid. Sometimes confidence is the underlying thing that they need to work on. Because if your kiddo has all the skills, but they're afraid to stay home alone, then we're never going to cross that bridge to be able to leave them home alone. And so I give them the skills, I'm never going to waste anybody's time. I'm going to give them the skills that from the moment they wake up to the moment that they lay their head back on that pillow, the skills we're going to use are going to be useful. We're going to talk about time management. We're going to talk about making their own food, breakfast, lunch, dinner. We're going to talk about what do they do in case of emergency? What do they do in case they feel bullied at school? We're going to give them that outlet so they can find their own voice. Their voice is so important. And it's not about not making mistakes. What's important is taking action. And some kiddos are so scared to take action of any kind, small, little, big, doesn't matter, because they're so afraid of making mistakes. And when we normalize and we realize that, like, we can't actually grow without mistakes, we cannot. And so for me, it's about again, just being that guiding person. And the classes that I've been teaching, I teach classes and I teach camps, are really about hands-on experience. One of the things that the kiddos were super excited about is, like, I said, okay, let's talk about car maintenance, or let's talk about, every single kid rides in a car, every single kid. So they all need to know, where do you find the spare tire? And so I took them out to my car. I opened my back hatch. We unloaded the stuff and we took the tire out. We got our hands dirty. We took the tire out. We took the crowbar out. For me, it's all about having them try it. Just giving them a chance to try it. And it's about normal things throughout your day. Your work doesn't have to be, as parents, sometimes we feel like we don't have time. We get overwhelmed. But if we can start trusting our own kids to become part of that family unit, and they start participating as part of that family unit, then our jobs aren't so hard. Our jobs actually, in fact, become easier.
You just described what we both encompass in this one word, and that's empowerment. And that's what you just described. You're empowering kids to, to feel comfortable. You can know something, but if you're not able to do it, that's the difference. That's a great example of taking them to your car to take out a spare tire so they know. It makes me think about those young kids that, when there's a medical emergency, you hear the stories about kids calling 911. I think there's one not too long ago. A little girl was like 4 years old, but she knew exactly what to do. She knew exactly what to tell the police or the 911 dispatcher when she was on the phone.
Yeah.
This is somebody that was not only taught, but actually probably, I'm pretty sure the parents went through a couple of dry runs, if you will, drills of it to make sure that they knew. And that's what you're talking about, which I think is so important. And those daily routines are perfect examples of that. When you go through and put kids through, not necessarily chores, but their routines. When you're not home and your daughters come home, they have a routine, and what they're supposed to do is X, Y, Z done, the little things. But they all encompass the big responsibility of being at home alone while you're not there and while your husband's not there. So you feel comfortable and they feel comfortable and they feel empowered.
Well, yeah, and they feel like they are necessary. They feel a part of the family because their part is necessary. And when we can build that, and it doesn't have to be big stuff, right? For example, one of my daughters, she likes to go to one of my classes, and she's like, the biggest thing I learned was when my mom let me put the noodles in and actually strain the big noodle thing and figure out how to do that. But I didn't just tell her how to do that. I let her do it herself. And did we spill water? Absolutely. We spilled some water. We spilled some noodles, but it's not the end of the world. And when we realize that, sometimes parents say, we don't expect perfection, but in reality, sometimes we do, because we want to complain about the mistakes or the spilled water or the spilled noodle or things like this. But really what we should be celebrating is the action, the fact that they even tried it. And sometimes I feel like that is overlooked so often. I know we've spoken about some situations between us, right? Because we're colleagues. And, sometimes we have to congratulate somebody that they were able to make a decision, take an action. Maybe it wasn't the right one at that time, but it was an excellent opportunity for growth.
No, 100%. There's, I don't know if you saw recently, I did my podcast about the parents and behavior, sporting events and things of that nature. So I think it kind of ties into what parents are teaching their kids, but more importantly, what they're not teaching their kids.
Or what what their behavior is teaching.
Oh, sure. I mean, there's an example there's one video of one of the brawls that I was talking about. One of the kids was on the court kicking an adult that was down on the ground. And it took me a few times to watch it. But that's the example where I feel like what's important for other adults to be able to positively impact kids' lives, to remind them of what's important and what's not important. Um,
Mhm.
I think I may or may not have shared this with you, but I'll share it just so another example from a sports perspective. Last year, we played a team twice. At the end of the game, both times the coach refused to shake my hand to acknowledge, we won
Mm.
both games. But so number one, poor sport, obviously. But he said something derogatory about me to his team while my team was standing there. My team heard it. So after the game, we're in the locker room, and then the guys were like, Coach, you hear what he said about you? And I said, yeah, I heard it, but that's not what I heard. What I heard was this coach teaching his kids how to be poor
Mhm.
losers and not accept responsibility for not being the better team on that day. Hey, I'm a grown man. I got thick skin. That words don't bother me, but it's what he's teaching his team. And that's the thing that's more important to me when you're talking about the personal growth and development. But again, this is an adult that's impacting young people in the wrong setting. And the rest of this is, I'm getting on my soapbox, but I want to leave it at that. But I just want to give a couple examples for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important because, you know, leaders have to lead, and sometimes parents don't feel like they're leaders in their family yet. I always want to empower families, especially parents, with the word yet. Maybe you don't feel like you're a leader yet in your family, but leaders lead, and your actions speak far louder than the words that you say. So we can't expect something of our kiddos, right? We can't expect behavior of our kiddos if we aren't willing to do that ourselves. And that's super important. But, some people feel that maybe they have kiddos who are entitled. Well, what I would ask them is, well, what have you done for them not to feel entitled? And some of that is established by, what do you do every day? What do you expect of yourself every day? What do you expect of your kiddos every day? And what do you do for others? And is everything that you do you require or demand a reciprocation? If everything that you do, you expect some kind of response or reaction or something, then guess what your kiddos are going to expect? It's the same. And so really, and it's I'm not saying, I don't blame the parents at all. We as parents are all doing the best we can with the skills that we have. And I guess I sometimes use the reference of, would you use a computer from the 90s today? There's no way what we expect of our computer today that we could possibly run it from the 90s. And I'm being generous, because some people are still trying to function with their computers set at the 80s or the 70s, right? Because we're trying to parent our teenagers based on how we were either parented or how we felt when we were being parented. And unfortunately, the world's not the same as it was when we were growing up. Therefore, we can't be using the same software to be parenting our own teenagers. And so our actions matter. And so if we don't like the way that our kiddos are reacting, right, or acting, then we might have to take a look at ourselves, and not to throw fault. I am not judging you. I am not faulting you. All I'm saying is that we can all do better. And it's when we can take a step back and say, oh, okay, I made a mistake. I'll tell you that same time that I was telling you about the putting the noodles into the pot, that when I did that, the noodles went everywhere. They just went everywhere. And you know what? We turned around and you're like, this happens. It happens for me. It happens for them. So when we allow our kiddos to make mistakes, guess what that makes us allowed to do? It takes this burden off that we don't have to be perfect. So like, had the coach come to you and said, hey man, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Right? Then
Yeah.
It's not permanent. We can always go back and learn and make better versions of ourselves, even if, so many things. People say something, then somebody else reacts, and then it kind of creates this bad snowball that's going down the hill, right? But we all have a choice to make good snowballs that create good things that happen, or bad snowballs that make bad things happen.
Okay. Yeah. So two things. One, I'm going to go back to your analogy of the computers. I'm going to have one of my own. I still have a Razor phone from when, remember the Razor phones?
Yeah, so we had
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I keep it for nostalgic purposes, but I just think it's kind of cool for years from now. Somebody go, what's that? What is a phone? That's a phone? Oh, yeah, how small it is. But the other thing you mentioned, I think is so important, is about the different generations that kids are growing up in a different time than parents were. And this is the area where you and I understand between the parents and the kids. And we accept that the kids have something to offer us as to how they're growing up. So we in turn can take that information and apply it to help them still get the same results that we want from when we grew up. And I think that that's one of the things that you're referring to too, where some parents, some of them are missing that piece and trying to raise their kids based just on how they were raised. And that's where they get that pushback and not realizing, hey, yeah, we didn't have cell phones, didn't have computers, but yet I'm going to tell my kid how to use their phone and their computer. That is difficult, and that makes it tough for kids to trust. And then you mentioned the word about authentic. And I think that that's the other part that's really important for parents too. And we've shared this before, is like you were just mentioning about the noodles going everywhere. That's a genuine and authentic reaction that you had. It's like, hey, you know what? It happens, as opposed to making an excuse or saying, hey, that happened, but don't let it happen when you do it. They get to see you do it firsthand. Like, oh, okay, this stuff happens. It's what you do after it happens is what's going to stick with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Right? It's like the old saying, you get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. That's the thing that's really important. And the last thing I'll mention to that is one of the things I'm always telling the players. I said, I know what you're capable of.
Yeah.
My question is, what are you willing to do? And I think that's another thing when you were talking about earlier on about the routine and them knowing, but them doing is two different things. That's what I compare being capable versus being willing to do.
Yeah. Well, ready, willing, and able are skills, because sometimes we might be ready, we might be able, but sometimes we're not willing. And so, and let's be honest, you know, we all have fears. We all have fears, and we all have to push through them. And if we aren't willing to, the best success that you feel is through the fear, because you've experienced it. If you stay fearful, you'll never know. You'll never know to push through. You never know what the experience is. And if you never know what that hard experience is, you in fact will never in your life have success.
Yeah, agreed. No, 100%. And a lot of kids are afraid to take those steps
Yeah.
because they haven't. And I'll use the term push, but it really is being pushed. After learning it's one thing, but hey, you know it, now go try it so that you know you can experience and know what it feels like. It's like making decisions, is right, wrong, or indifferent, but you got to make it to learn. And every step of being a teenager is a learning experience that's going to
Yes.
benefit you in the future. And you have to go through the highs as well as or you got to go through the lows just as easy. It's not as easily, but just like you go through the highs. And I think that that's one of the things that frustrates or scares parents as much as it does to kids.
Together. So one of my favorite lines is, together we are stronger. Because let's remember, when our kiddos were young babies, tots, we were holding them, we were cuddling them, we were loving on them. And then when they were toddlers, and we all know that we did this, right? To that separation anxiety of like standing behind them and kind of pushing them forward to introduce them to new things, because if we never did that, they would stay attached to our hip. But as a teenager, as they get older, we can't continue to push them. In fact, we have to encourage them and let them know that we will walk alongside them on this journey, because eventually, whether you like it or not, they're going to become an adult. And if we don't take a step aside and join next to them and let them know and encourage them that together we will be up together and we will be down together and we will handle it together. Because together we're stronger. If both of you end up doing something totally different, you both will be weak in your own right? Like it's like a triangle. If you have a strong foundation, you have the parent and the adult, no wall is strong by itself. But if you put them together, you create the strength. And so, there's still strength when you're down. When you fall, and I give you a perfect example. I used to rollerblade all the time with my kiddos. A year ago, almost 18 months ago, I got on my rollerblades, was not even rollerblading, which I had done for many years. I stood up, I flipped on my back and broke my back. I broke it in 3 places. Now, mind you, I was way up northern Wisconsin, had no idea where an ER was at the time. And in that moment, my training and the skills that I have taught my daughter gave me strength just from being together. Now, could she lift me? No. Could she drive me? No, she's too young. But she gave me strength from the support. And so I was able to stand up. In fact, I made it almost 12 hours until I decided that I was like, nope, I'm going to drive myself to the ER because something's seriously wrong. But in that moment, it gave us both strength. 1, I knew she was there. 2, I knew she could go get help and we could do it together, even at what you would consider a very low of mine.
Yeah, I forgot you told me about that, about your back. I couldn't imagine. Oh, the pain. Could imagine. How long were you bedridden?
So luckily I didn't have any spinal cord involvement at all. But part of what I help other families with is like, how do you come back from a back injury? And I taught a class in a month. I taught a 6-hour class in a month. So I was like 2 weeks where it was very hard to walk around. I was at least a week on the first floor because it was hard to go upstairs. But then in a month, I was teaching a class in front of other people. And I think, again, the support of my family and how we came together during those times, because clearly I was not capable of doing certain things. But because we've established that what I do for them, they're willing to do for me as well.
And that leads to my next question. I was going to ask you, during that time, how did your girls kind of step up when you were incapacitated?
We all had to do things that we weren't comfortable with, right? I work at home, I coach from home. And so I had the luxury of being able to walk them to the bus stop. I couldn't walk. So they had to do it on their own. And they had to accept rides from people they had never accepted rides from. And we were all doing very hard things, but they knew I was there to support them in the way that I could, and vice versa. But, we think that, when we're doing the right thing, it's going to be easy, and it's not. Everybody's afraid to say that life is hard, but we do hard things every single day. And I want you to know that hard things are possible. You can do hard things too.
So, no, you're 100% right. So here's the other part of this, because I'm kind of letting you prove your point with each one of these questions I'm asking you. So your girls stepped up, but here's the big question. How easy was it for them to step up knowing that their mom couldn't do the things that she was doing pretty regularly before your injury? Was there any hesitation in them stepping up, or was it just a natural attrition that, hey, you know what, this is what I have to do. This is what I've been taught to do?
I think it was natural. I don't think any of us really hesitated about what needed to be done. I mean, even my husband, no questions that he had to carry me to go to the bathroom, right? But in the meantime, my kiddos are counting my steps going, Mom, you can do it. Mom, you can take a few more steps. You can do it, And it's this idea that, and it's okay. If you are from a broken home, that's okay too. I came from one. Both my parents were married 3 times. And so I understand that dynamic. But even when I was with my own mother, and my sisters, so I did have 3 sisters, we rely on each other in the same way. And so I've instilled that same value with my husband, and I'm lucky to have, a partner at home. But even if you don't have a partner, you can still have this relationship with your kiddos that they understand.
But it's also about the foundation. It's basically why I was asking a question. It's
Yeah.
about the foundation of how early you start to teach those things so that they teach those little things that
Yeah.
become big things. And then
Mhm.
that's what your situation will turn to a big thing. But it's the little things that they were able to do that you taught them. And you said it was pretty much naturally. Well, that's all based on how you and your husband kind of taught them about those things. So I think it's really important. That's one reason I wanted to ask you those questions.
And the reason why I include the Tweenager Coach T is because my kids were teenagers, and I felt that it was never too early to teach my kids first aid. It's never too early. And so that's why I include the tween in all of this, because sometimes we don't expect enough from our kids when they are so capable. And I see that in them. And that's why it's my passion, because they're our future, whether we like it or not. But they are so capable. And sometimes we don't give them enough credit for being so capable. And, everybody is shocked about how advanced my kids are, meaning, like, I let my kids climb ladders because I've taught them at a young age how to do that safely. My kiddo was able to give me first aid because I taught them at a young age it's okay. You don't have to wait till you're in junior high. You don't have to wait till you're in high school to learn these skills. These are life skills, and that's why they're so critical life skills that I teach that are so important. I mean, that's why I joined a company like the Heimlich maneuver. We don't call it that anymore. They call it abdominal thrusts, but how we can stop people from choking, because somebody as small as a teenager is capable of doing that. We just have to give them the skills for them to know.
No, the best part of that, Nicole, was you're never too young to learn these skills. And I think that's what's really important. I think some parents they try to gauge when they should teach something, or will they
Yeah.
be able to retain this or that. I mean, think about infants that are learn to swim. Sometimes they're just put it in water and go, hey,
Yeah.
make it happen. And so they learn early. And I think that's the great message that you shared there. Is never too early to start training your kids with the skills that they need to be successful. And it made me think about high school when I majored myself in high school and had home ec and all these other electives that you don't see in schools anymore. But you know what? I still sew up my holes in my socks. I'd rather sew up the holes than throw them out and get new ones, because I was taught that. My mom taught me how to sew, because she used to make our clothes when we were younger. So
Yeah,
she taught us
same.
how to mend. Yeah, taught us how to mend. She taught us how to cook. I ended up being a chef. So I love cooking. I didn't love eating, but I love cooking, because she taught me the joy of cooking. There's a difference between cooking and the joy of cooking. So, learning that early, and I turned that into a career. So you just never know what you connect with if you learn something early enough. And for what you're doing, I think it's phenomenal. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions before we head out.
Yep.
The first one is what you are working on currently, if you can share that with us.
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm super excited. I'm creating a membership it's less than $1 a day for a vault for parents to have access to these critical life skills that we were talking about in this opportunity. So thank you again for doing that. Because these critical life skills, it doesn't matter how old you are. It could be older and you could be a kid. I think parents and teenagers, they could both use just having, repetition is the mother of skill. And so even parents could get some reminders as to what these critical life skills are and how we can start using our electronics to our benefit. And so this is one of those ways. So it's through what's called a WhatsApp. It's free for you. It's free for me. You will have complete access to me. It's we use our phone numbers, but it's housed in an encrypted app. And so parents would have access to all the tools that we're talking about here, how to, get your kiddos to start doing things for themselves, how to improve that relationship between you and your teenager, and how to keep them safe. Remember, Safety for me, for you and your family is of the utmost importance. And so I help with teaching people first aid skills, and I help them figure out, these little things like time management. But when you incorporate them, they make a huge difference. And it's a complete vault and full access, as long as you're a member in the membership, and it's $1 a day for parents. And really, it's access to me, so then they can decide what kinds of critical life skills that they eventually want to teach their tweenager. Yeah, I also do, as an add-on to that, then I do one-on-one coaching. So in this virtual world, which is amazing that you're from North Carolina, I'm from Illinois, and we are on this call together. And so this is how technology starts to work for us, in learning some amazing things from amazing people that maybe we wouldn't have access to otherwise.
Yeah. No, we definitely would have never connected had it not been for the platform like this. And, I guess there's always something good that comes out of something bad. And,
Yes.
I think this is definitely one of those things. That's an amazing concept with your program and doing it via WhatsApp. I know that's become very popular with a lot of businesses doing that. So that's my first time hearing how that worked. That's impressive. So definitely encourage people to take you up on that offer. I mean, $1 a day. I mean, that's good. That's good.
It's less than a pack
Good
of
deal.
gum, right? And we're not expecting, in case anybody's worried about, they want me to talk about my family, they want me to divulge all my secrets. That's not what this is about. You have
Right.
access to me personally, which is nice about the WhatsApp, is that really, if you have any questions or concerns or, anything, that's private. For the group idea and the membership, the other side of that membership is group. Whereas, it's a way for me to teach to a large group of people, and to get perspective, because holy cow, when you get some perspective in other people's lives, it could be empowering, it could be enlightening, it could be encouraging, inspiring, and that all feeds off our brains in a positive way. And that is the way to get that positive snowball rolling. And we focus on the good things in life. Yeah, and I know that we are both working with an amazing woman, Ann Sullivan. So I'm plugging her in here because I am onboarding her project as well. And so maybe that would be an opportunity to work in the future.
Yes, Ann Sullivan. Yes. She's a phenomenal young lady, I should say. She's a mom. She's a young lady. But yeah, I'm so glad that I was able to get you two connected, and you're ultimately working together. So there's a couple others in there that I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised and see opportunities as well. But one last question for you, Nicole. This is one I ask every guest on the show. I'd like for you to share with us the individual or individuals that have been most influential in your life and why.
Oh man, for good and bad. Honestly, my parents and my family. There has been a stick-to-itiveness to my family that is like no other. Like I mentioned, my parents have both been married 3 times, and that comes with some adversities. But I have to say that the ability for us to forgive and to continue to communicate, and I have a pretty great family, all things considered. And honestly, they have instilled values in me that I carry on to my own kiddos, right? This idea of learning by getting your hands dirty. That is something that is all of my sisters, my mother and my father, I just won't ever forget, when I started a softball team after college, guess who was on my team? And I would have wanted nobody else. My parents and my sisters. So
Really?
There is so much to say that it honestly doesn't matter what happens in your family. Forgiveness goes a long way.
Yeah. Amen to that. No, that is great. Like you said, for good or bad is family. I love that because that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You go through those highs and lows of families, but they're still family, always family. So appreciate you sharing that. That's great. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention this before we go. So this whole episode you've been referring to, this is where we talk about being in different parts of the country. So you say kiddos a lot, and you go different parts of the country, and we here in the South we say kids, we say youngins, we say cheering, we say children. It runs the gamut, but I think that's kind of cool though. But that's what I'm sure somebody else has been hearing that, but to hear that repeated, it's kind of it's neat, but it's at the same time it's endearing, and it's your use of the word kiddos, but that's what you've learned, right? But it goes to show you how different we are, but yet how similar we are.
Yeah, we're talking about this. They're the people I love. They're the people I love. In fact, people will find me. I will call everybody love. Like I'll be, okay, love, they come this way. All right, your turn, love, And everybody's like, why do you do that? And I said, thanks to Katerina, I love everybody. I love everybody, and they are love. Our teenagers are love. And if we don't show them love, we don't show that they are worthy and they are unique, and if we can't help them be the best versions of themselves while also being the best versions of ourselves for the people that they need right now, right? You can admit to this, is that we're coaches. We know what we're doing. I'm never done learning. I'm never done growing. And we can do this all together. And I love it, because if we don't show them love, who is?
Yes.
And
Amen.
We are all meant for great things. I truly believe that.
Oh, most definitely. And you actually I was going to ask you if you had any last words of encouragement, but what you just said is perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Nicole, this has been a phenomenal conversation, as I expected it would be. It's been an absolute pleasure to get introduced to you, number one. Number two, to continue our communication, both here and offline as well. But wish you all the best and continued success. And for everybody out there, just remember, I'm Coach T. I'm here to educate, support, and inspire the next generation of leaders. Until next episode, we'll see ya.
If you want your children to be successful in their academics and careers, or if you just want them to be tech savvy, the S.E.A. of Success Academy can help. This blueprint for the successful adolescent helps kids develop essential life skills they need to be successful in both their personal lives and professionally. Your kids will be smarter, compassionate, appreciative, and logical, and ready for anything. The S.E.A. of Success Academy curriculum is designed to help kids develop important life skills, including critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and effective communication. These skills are essential for success in any area of life, whether it's getting good grades in school, landing a great job, or maintaining healthy relationships. With the help of the S.E.A. of Success Academy, your kids will be well on their way to a bright future. Overview of the courses. S.E.A. of Success Academy offers courses that are based on the universal design for learning approach. We offer video, ebook, and audio formats for each course to ensure that all students can access and participate in meaningful, fun learning opportunities. It is not a pass-fail approach, it is life learning opportunities in an educational, supportive, and inspirational environment. With lifetime access to all courses purchased, makes it even more valuable for you and your kids. Our courses are designed to be flexible and adaptable to the needs of each individual learner. Whether you are a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner, we have a course that will work for you. We believe that everyone deserves the chance to learn in a way that suits their needs, and we are committed to providing that opportunity for all our students. The use of AI technology in our courses allows us to be able to generate more course content in less time. We can also update and/or adjust the content of the course accordingly. This ensures that every student has the opportunity to learn at their own pace and learn in the way that works best for them. Coach T will be excited to see you enroll your kids in the S.E.A. of Success Academy today and give them the tools they need for a bright and prosperous future.